Hey guys, welcome to Turn2, a Hearthstone podcast from Doa and Artosis. I am Doa. Artosis, we've made it through the Christmas break. We're back in action again. Hopefully, we can have one of these every single week, and we have two awesome guests on the show as well. Trump and Strifecro. Strifecro has no webcam. He's not sitting very, very still. He's actually not going to move at all, so don't worry about that. But let's see how our guests are doing today. How you doing, Trump?
Doing great.
That's good. Nothing to add to that, just great. Come on, give me more than that. No more like 1 and 2 word answers this time. Like that is something you need to work on, sir. When somebody asks you a question, give us a sentence, a real sentence. Come on. Why are you great?
Well, I'm doing great because I just played a really intense game of the strategic board game Go, and my brain is fried because of it.
See, that's great. See, that's something interesting. The fans want to know about your Go playing ways. That's good. Thank you. Artosis, how are you doing?
It's fucking cold here, man. I can't even believe how cold Korea is getting, and I'm right next to the window.
It looks cold. The lighting is very blue, like as if...
It's because it's so cold out, man. I feel like I've been hit with frostbolt.
My apartment's actually a little bit too
frozen.
I'm in the same city as you are, man. I don't know. I just turned on my heater and it gets warm. This technology thing, it's pretty sick. But Strifecro, how are you doing, man? You look very pensive in your picture, but how do you really feel?
I'm feeling pretty good right now. I've been watching The Big Bang Theory all day. Got through 5-6 episodes. I'm in the middle of one right now, and I haven't paused, just for this show. After this, I'm gonna finish up my episode.
When I ladder sometimes, not all the time, but if I'm just gonna test the decks and I'm doing casual instead of ranked or something like that, if I'm just working on something, I'll just have a show going on in the background. Are me and Strifecro alone in this? Do you guys do that too, where you just have episodes of something you're watching kind of going on the side while you're testing things?
No.
Can't. I'll be playing, and I'd like to say right now, I feel full of strife. Ooh.
Strife? All right.
Oh, never mind. Now I feel like Trump.
Okay, it's good to know. Well, a lot of things have changed since we last did Turn 2. I mean, there was a new ladder that came out, which is a pretty cool system. Kind of gain a star, lose a star, and the amount you gain, the amount you lose, varies as you move up the ranks. Actually, you always just lose one, right? You can never go on loss streaks where you lose more than one, can you?
No, you can't go on bonus lose streak.
All right, good. I have not experienced that yet, but I hope I never do. But there you go. So there's that. It's a lot of fun. But also, this new ladder has really caused the meta on said ladder and in the game in general to just shift dramatically. We were kind of worried we were coming sort of to the end of the meta, that the game was sort of figured out as far as a set of cards go a few weeks ago, and that is entirely incorrect. I mean, things have changed a lot. There have been some nerfs, and that's changed things as well, too. Obviously, balance changes are going to have a big effect, and there have been quite a few of them, especially kind of those big nerfs to Mage that we saw hit. But it's been crazy. We've seen this big shift towards lots of control-oriented decks, and then because of that, we've had these kind of hyper aggro decks pop up here and there. Murloc Warlock, hyper aggro Warlock, and then there's solid mid-range stuff that's kind of always going to be around. Rogue is still, according to actually a website that Trump just showed us, according to data volunteered by a lot of players, a little over 4,000 of them, Rogue is still the most winningest class in Constructed right now. So just huge shifts. I don't really even know where to begin with all this. There's so much to talk about. Artosis, what do you think, man?
Okay, wow, you had a lot of things to say there, and I'm not sure which one to tackle right now, but let's go to the ladder.
That's why I'm opening it up, yeah.
The ladder's awesome, by the way. Congratulations, Strifecro, the man who sits on top of the NA ladder non-fucking stop. I think you got way up and you stopped playing. I think that's the only way you could still be rank 1 right now. But
no, I've played a lot of games this week.
Oh, wow.
I've lost rank 1. There's one person fighting me for rank 1. I think his name is Razor. He was playing a one-turn kill warrior deck.
Yeah.
I think I've been rank 1 I've lost to me 5-6 times because he's got it, but I've gotten it back every time within 1 hour or so. So, I've been holding it pretty much 24/7 this whole week. So yeah.
Yeah. No, every time I log on, there's Strifecro. He's got that one next to his name. Are you just using Druid to do that?
Yeah. I'm playing a Druid deck. Could probably talk about it a little bit later in the show, but it's pretty cool. I like it.
Okay. Cool.
I think he cut out.
I think maybe. I don't know. It's maybe a
there
little
it
bit.
Is.
Oh, I said
It
I
was
could
very
probably
abrupt.
talk about it later in the show, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to talk about this topic first. So.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So, anyways, the ladder, I think it's fucking great, man. Because before, they would just like release a list randomly. They're like, well, look at this. And I mean, Strifecro is still on the top of those lists as well. But, you know, it was, if you didn't have anything to look at, what's the point? You're just going to grind all day. You have no idea where you're at, really. I mean, you can kind of keep stats, but it's just not, you know, what does it mean? But I really like it like this because you can actually like see your progress up and down. You can watch yourself go on little losing streaks or big win streaks and stuff. And it actually is. Here's the best part. I don't have to see all these fucking people that are like, well, just use my 3-star master deck, because now we actually see where you rank. And it's like, okay, well, are you a level 8? Are you a level 3? Are you legendary? And what rank are you there? And therefore we can actually have like more productive posts on Reddit and stuff like that. So I don't know. I love it. I think it's great.
Well, feedback is one of the most important aspects of design. It's like one of the 6 cornerstones.
Yeah.
That's very true. Trump, what do you think?
Joseph said it all. The ladder is great. I haven't actually been playing it much since I've moved back to Arena, but come the ladder reset January 2nd, I'm feeling a little bit of ladder itching in me, and you will see me go as far as I can on that day.
Sick.
All right. Awesome. Cool.
By the way, just a quick little aside here, because the thing is, we 3 are constructed players, but Trump is Arena. How do you like the 12-win system?
Oh my gosh, it is the best thing ever. So it's really fun because often I would hit 9 wins, but now when you hit 9 wins, it becomes like intense hard mode. And every single deck you play from 9, 10, 11, 12, well, you don't play 12, but 9, 10, 11 is like the hardest deck you have ever seen. Like, you can expect that it will be insane in some way, and it's really amazing.
So you're stipulating that as you win more in Arena, there's actually a matchmaking system that changes? I was always under the assumption that you play random people. Like, I was always under the assumption that you play random people the whole way.
No, there's no way. There's no way you play random people, because the first 2 are usually gimmicks, although sometimes the first one is really hard because it's completely random since you're 0 wins and you probably play against someone with 0 wins. And then I found that if you lose like the first 1 or the first 2, you usually get a free win or 2 because the opponent generally is not playing too well from there on out. There's some sort of system in place.
Oh, weird, because I haven't played nearly as much Arena as you, obviously, but I've never noticed that it changed like the difficulty as I progressed through it. So I don't know.
That's good.
I've only played 1 Arena since the reset. I got up to 10 wins and then I lost out, and I was like, there, that's it. I've Arena'd. Now it's back to constructed time. But it did seem like, I mean, in the 1 Arena play, the only one I said, the few decks I hit at the very end did seem like a little bit better, and they did seem played better too. So I think that'd be awesome if Blizzard instituted some sort of system where as you moved up, you played against other people like with the same number of wins or something. That'd be so cool.
It sounds like that's
is
the case.
Basically happening, yes.
Awesome. Yeah. That actually makes Arena seem a lot more appealing. That's really awesome. Cool. So, yeah, I've been playing a lot of ladder as well, mostly ladder as well. I've had to spend a lot of time on League because we're in the quarterfinals now, so that's taking up a lot of my time too. But as I've played, it's fun, and I really do like the, gain stars, lose stars thing. It's really a lot harder, but it's also, and at the same time, it's extremely frustrating sometimes when you have a bad night. Like last night, I had a horrible night on the ladder. But it's also really, really fun, too, because it's hard. Like, afterwards, you think back on, you're like, actually, I wouldn't want it any other way. I'd rather get angry like that than have, like, the 3-star master thing that we had before. You don't really know where you're at, But
yeah,
I think the ladder's a good thing. I don't really want to, I mean, well, I'll put this out there just to see what you guys think. But I don't really have any changes in mind that I would suggest to adjust the way the ranking system works right now. I like it. I think we need more experience with it anyway before we really develop any solid opinions on it. But I'll throw it out there anyway. Anybody have any thoughts about possible changes they'd want to see in the ranking system right now? Or are you pretty satisfied with it?
It seems pretty awesome. I would like to know exactly how the legendary stuff works. Like, do people have hidden MMRs and stuff like StarCraft that's judging how many spots you up and down? Because as I won and lost, the jumps were, I don't know, it was weird to watch some of the jumps. Sometimes I would jump way up and then I'd fall down only a little bit, or like I would go up just a tiny bit or something like that. So I would like just a little bit of transparency how it's calculated once you hit legendary. But
No, the legendary ranks are entirely based on ELO, entirely on ELO.
okay,
So basically, as your ELO goes up and down, you lose ranks in legendary. Basically,
Okay,
ranks
yeah.
like 1 to 25 is all based on just results. You know, wins, losses, right? 1 star per win, unless you get a bonus.
but
too.
there has to be an ELO in there as well, because
Yeah,
you know
there
I
is an
hit those
ELO.
sometimes, and when I lose to someone that's not in legendary, it hurts more and stuff. Like
There's an ELO there, but you know, all the actually like
Yeah.
ranking is all based on results. But in legendary, it's entirely based on ELOs.
cool.
Interesting. All right. Well, so there we go. Rank ladder. Pretty awesome now. I want to get right into the decks. I want to talk about this stuff. There's a lot of decks to talk about, actually. A lot of cool stuff that's come back up. But one thing I kind of want to talk about first is a deck that really, well, I want to talk about the class more than the deck, really, and that's Mage. Like, Mage got a big nerf in that a lot of their AoE became one more expensive. Like, pretty much all of their AoE, except for Flame Strike, if I remember right, I think got one more expensive as far as mana goes. And it's interesting because, like, I've been playing a little bit of Mage since then, and it does slow you down a little bit, but I'm definitely not ready to abandon the class just yet. I still think it's pretty good, but you just don't seem to run into a lot of mages on the ladder right now. Like, what do you guys think about Mage post-nerf? And I'm going to throw the question over to Trump first.
Sure, I'll tie this into current meta
Yeah, you
game,
can-
since I felt like
Yeah.
that wasn't talked about enough because this mage nerf actually changed. It's what caused the entire metagame to change.
one of the
It used
big
to be
factors.
that, yeah, it used to be that this mage AOE with the freeze and the Cone Cold and the Blizzard and the Frost Nova, that would be really strong against aggro. So it was holding all of the aggro back, and now that it's nerfed, aggro has made a comeback, I'd say, in a pretty big way. And also, it's caused all the old healing decks to sort of be a lot less good because that freeze mage deck was the best deck to put healing against. That said, I think the mage deck is probably still playable, although I haven't seen it a lot either.
All right. What do you think, Strifecro? You're all the way at the top. You've, like, seen it all at this point on the ladder. Like, what do you think about Mage?
I think that, well, definitely the popularity of Mage is like just pretty much at zero now. Like, it used to be, you know, the best class pretty much undisputedly, and now it's pretty much gone. Having, you know, like the difference between 1 mana on a spell and Hearthstone is pretty big. Like the way, like pretty much every 1 mana you go up, usually you can get 2 more power out of a card. You can almost think about that as like drawing an extra card, because draw a card is only valued at 3 power to begin with. So by making every single mage AoE 1 more mana, that's almost effectively, you know, adding like, you know, discard a card on all the mage spells, you know, from before if you kept that the same mana. So the nerfs on 1 more mana are very big. The entire premise of like the ice block giant kind of pyroblast freeze mage is gone now. I feel like the most successful mage decks now are just pretty much aggressive ones. The aggro mage decks, you know, generally didn't use very many Frost Novas, Cones, and Blizzards to begin with. You know, I think the only one they used a lot maybe is, you know, maybe Blizzard. I don't think none of the aggro mages ever used Frost Nova, and Cone was like, you know, some of them. So I don't think I affected that as much. I think the old standard like freeze giant mage is pretty much gone, although because people have kind of taken all the healing out, and you know, some of the aggro decks don't run as much reach anymore, like Leroy's and Power Whelmings and stuff. It could be like a good metagame switch to kind of play that deck again, but in reality, if someone, you know, was tuning like an aggressive Warlock deck to run you over, you would pretty much never win with that anymore. You know, if they still had all the Leroy's and Leper Gnomes and Power Whelmings, and you'd never win. So.
Right. All right. Similar thoughts, Artosis? Doing a lot of nodding.
Yeah, pretty much. The freeze nerfs are like pretty crazy. Like I've tried to use like Frozen Giants a little bit, and it's like so much harder to hold on against anything. So you know, I think Mage is still, it's coming back though right now. Like I'm starting to hit a few more Mage decks on the ladder, because as Strifecro said, heals are like kind of going away, and I'm starting to hit some of these guys that are just basically playing aggro mage, like regular aggro mage with 2 ice blocks, which is like pretty funny, because you think you're okay, and then they play an ice block, and you're like, as soon as that secret comes up, you know what the fuck that is. You're like, oh no, and then the pyroblast comes out, and you're like, well, oh, you drew 2 fireballs, that's cool, okay, I guess you win. So it's like, it's still kind of popping up right now, and people are retuning aggro mage quite a bit. So I don't know. I think we're going to see a major turn. There's these little cycles of metagame that things go through, and as heals like leave in favor of more board control, that'll do better against Warlock, which will do better against just an aggro mage. So the aggro mage will come back out, and so I think we're going to see a little revitalization of aggro mage. So
it's cool. It's the CCG wheel of life. That's what it is. It's a circle of life for Hearthstone, or circle of healing. No, I won't say that. But it's interesting because I really, the Frost Giants deck, the Mage Giants deck, was one of my favorite ones to play pre the new ladder system, and I haven't deleted it yet. It's still there, but I have to kind of like feel out the ladder if I'm playing, and I'm like, I think this is a day where I could actually play some games with this, and that's kind of what you have to do on the ladder now. It seems like in general, you have to kind of feel what other people are playing and then be like, all right, I think this is a day for this deck today. And some days are Frost Giant days, some days are not Frost Giant days, it seems like. But overall, the days for Frost Giant have lessened, definitely, unfortunately, because that's a fun deck to play.
I think most people would disagree with, well, not a fun deck to play against, I think most people.
No, it's not fun to play against. It's fun to play it, but yeah, I don't like playing against it either.
I love making people mad.
So the other decks that have come up that have really intrigued me are these warrior decks. There's the OTK deck, and then there's kind of the control deck that you could argue is kind of OTK because it does swing at you with a lot of stuff. But these warrior decks that are popping up, and Strifecro, you were saying that the Razor up at the top as well was also using one to kind of maintain that near first place position on the ladder right now. It's kind of cool to see warrior come back like this. So let's talk a little bit like why Warrior was able to do that, and like how long do you think it's going to last? Is Warrior here to stay, or is this just kind of like another shift in the circle of Hearthstone here? Strifecro, I'm going to throw it to you first again.
I think that deck's really strong, actually. As far as it being like staying, I think that Blizzard is actually going to change some stuff about it, because if you look at how they've been doing the nerfs, they generally have been keeping the philosophy of like anything that's like extremely unfun or like uninteractive, something like one-turn kill combos they'll generally fix. So as far as how strong the deck is, I think it's extremely strong, but I think the problem with those decks is, well, as far as like from a not from a strength perspective, but from like a game design perspective, it's kind of like ruining the game. Like I have like a personal vendetta against like those kind of decks. Like I don't play them, and I don't if people ask to like practice against me with those decks, I will generally decline. Like I just don't want anything to do with them. It's just like I feel like the basis of Hearthstone is like, creatures fighting with like spells supporting it, and you can fight for like board control, card advantage, tempo. But those kind of decks just kind of try to throw all that out the window and just try to get like a certain condition where they just win, and I just don't like that stuff. So, but I do think it's a strong deck. So,
and I think to add to this, I think the reason why it's like rotated back in is because like Frozen Giant type stuff, like Ice Block is gone. And, I mean, what are you going to do? OTK and Ice Block? Okay, next turn they Pyroblast you because you're at 10 health, so you could play your Giants for free. I mean, it's the most obvious direct counter that it would have a very difficult time beating. So I think that's kind of why it's back. And Warrior has, like, a lot of good control, like Cleave and all these weapons, and the fact that it can gain armor and stuff. So it like does well against all these rush decks that are pretty popular right now, and with cards like it has some of the most efficient removal in the form of like Execute as well for the big stuff. And now that like Black Knight's around and stuff like that, I mean you won't see in every deck. And then like Murlocs are important again, and it has Brawl, so it just kind of has answers to everything, and its counters are gone. So it's like it's pretty good, but I think it's another deck that like will be around for a bit. But like for instance, if like Ice Block really becomes big again, that can be very good against it. If people are, I don't know if it, but it can beat everything. I guess is what I'm trying to say here. Like
Warrior kind of just, it makes me sad because it was always my favorite class in World of Warcraft, and I've been trying to play it in Hearthstone, but it seems like every time it's like all the decks are really good, then Warrior pops up. It's like, hey guys, hey look, I've got a good deck now. I'm still here, and everyone's like, no Warrior, that deck sucks, and everyone starts to just change, and then the Warrior deck gets bad, and then there's no good Warrior decks for a long time, and Warrior's like, oh, okay. But Trump, I want to ask you an arena question. Warrior in arena right now, have you seen any sort of changes since the meta on the ladder shift has happened? Like, actually, instead of just asking about Warrior, I want to ask this too. Do you feel like, how much, I should say this, how much do the changes in constructed affect what people are playing in arena? Do you feel like there's a correlation there?
I think Arena has changed almost zero because, well, let me talk about, there's two distinct changes. Shadowed Sun Cleric is slightly worse in Arena. That was a patch a while ago. But the mage changes change almost nothing in Arena since Cone of Cold was okay, now it's probably terrible. Frost Nova was usually questionable, now it's more questionable. And Blizzard was usually pretty good. Now I'm not sure about it. I'm actually a little curious about, I'm going to throw a question to Strifecro about Warrior OTK, since that deck seems really interesting and you think that it might get changed. What particular version of it, since I know there are quite a lot of versions that you can run with that deck?
I think the strongest version is the one with War Song Commander and Molten Giant with Pandas. Like, there's some other weird stuff with Alexstrasza, and the Gorehowl
that one's
in
fun.
Charge. It's fun, but I think that one is weaker. It's just War Song Commander. It's too strong when you start pushing the card, to its limits, and that's effectively what that deck is doing. When you're starting to get like 8/8 chargers that are cycling, even the Pandas can attack after, so you can start doing up to like 35-40 damage in one turn. Like a weak version of the combo can maybe do like 20 damage, but I've seen people actually be able to combo for over 40 damage. I think those are the most viable candidates for nerfs. Like when one card starts to be pushed that high, that was the essence of the Unleash the Hounds nerf. It's a 1 mana card, so you're supposed to get maybe 4 power from it. Unleash the Hounds is starting to be pushed to like 30 power, getting 30-40 damage in. The same thing for War Song Commander. So I think that's really the problem card, War Song Commander. I could see them leaving just the 0 mana charge spell in, because that's not as gimmicky where you charge one creature. You need, if you want to charge multiple creatures, you need multiple copies of the spell. I think the problem lies in the War Song Commander for sure.
I have to disagree slightly with this. Like, War Song Commander is ridiculous, and there's like a lot of silly shit you can do with it. But I like when cards start costing 0. That's always when shit becomes really broken. Like, that's how combos thrive, is drawing a lot of cards and stuff that's free. And you look at some of the ridiculous things, like a lot of these combo decks, like Frozen Giants is like this. How did that win so convincingly all the time? Well, Molten Giant, man. It's like pretty sick, right? You play it for 0, and you can also do anything else you want that turn. And we're seeing that again here, because that's how you beat the deck, is you play around with the life total so they can't play these things for like 0 or 1 mana. And so I feel like that is a big piece of the issue, is that these cost like 0. And you look at some of the other 0 casting cost stuff, that like Soulfire, for instance. How many fucking games have we all lost to someone who's like, well, I mean, yeah, Soulfire for free, here we go, ha, I win. So I don't know, I feel like stuff that costs 0 is when, that's how things become really degenerate in my mind.
I agree completely, actually, with that. That's one of the things that's made me kind of uncomfortable about Hearthstone from the beginning, is that there's so many free spells in the game. And like you said, that does really kind of encourage the just draw a bunch of stuff, and then you can kind of play your big combos, and it doesn't really matter how much mana you have. So, yeah, I've thought Molten Giant, you know, what if it went down to like a minimum of 2 to play? You know, what if it was a minimum of 2 to play a Molten Giant? Or, you know, what if we took all the zero cost
you'd have to
cards?
be fancy with how you worded that on the on the card.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I agree with you in the points that we need to kind of think about getting rid of zero cost cards.
Speaking of wording on cards, now this is completely unrelated. What the hell dictates where my damaged golem appears when Harvest Golem dies? Because sometimes he goes to the right, which is what I thought everything was supposed to do, and sometimes he appears in the exact same fucking spot.
Well,
is
there's
my
obviously
board bugged when this happens, or is it what?
I think there's obviously some bugs going on there
Trump
because
and
I mean,
Strifecro, you guys must know this.
I think
Tell
it's
me.
the exact same spot, and if it's moving, that means you've got the movement bug going on.
Okay, okay.
I'd like to go on to the 0 mana thing, though. I actually
Please,
think part of that... I think having 0 mana spells, like Molten Giant, it takes a lot of work to get your Molten... Well, it takes some amount of work to get your Molten Giant to cost 0. And I think that's... I think that's a lot of the fun of it, and that's why I think it could legitimately get not nerfed, unlike the Hunter OTK, which was pure solitaire. The Warrior deck, you have a lot of ways to play around it. You can set them to like 15 health, 16 health, and then try to bum rush them down in that one final blow. I think there's a lot of interaction there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't get changed. And I think it might be okay. Like, this is probably something I would think about, like, seeing how it went. I don't think every deck is a Warrior one-turn kill deck, and I'm not sure about just how popular it is.
I don't think it's gonna get nerfed, but I think that's the part that might be the broken issue. And I think one of the big reasons it probably won't get nerfed is because it's actually hard to play that deck correctly. So we aren't gonna just have like a trillion posts like, oh, mind controls Imba, you know, like none of that stuff, because like you're not gonna see down at the lower ranks people like comboing out with this deck. I don't think it's gonna take like it's like a lot harder to play it perfect. That's as opposed to mind control. You just on turn 8, you're like, well, I steal your Ragnaros, it's pretty sick. All right, so that's why I think it's not going to be nerfed.
There are some other Warsong Commander combos that you can use without the Molten Giant. One I've seen is when you get a big weapon like Gorehowl, perhaps up to like 8. There's a 2-mana pirate, I believe, that gets bigger and bigger as your weapon gets bigger. So you can get 2 mana for like a 10-3 or something, and you can just use the 10-3, pand it a couple times, so you can get a 1-turn kill with the Gorehowl and that. So there's other non-Molten Giant combos that you can abuse with Warsong Commander as well.
Yeah, that card is kind of crazy, man. Warsong, it's like the scariest fucker when that comes out.
It's like, well, do I die this turn or not?
Part of me likes having these combos around, though. It allows for more creative decks and more different decks. Also, there seems to at least be a counter to these types of things, because you just mentioned another type of Warrior deck, which is why I asked you, like, oh, what type of Warrior deck is it that's up there? They have to have a Gorehowl in play, and there's... Maybe we're going to see Bloodsail Corsair get play. What? That'd be crazy.
But keep in mind that what you're saying about getting a gigantic board, leaving them at 15, and running them over in one turn. They have stuff like Brawl too, where that's incredibly risky. You just stop attacking them at 15. You wait to build your board, and you can easily just get brawled and lose everything pretty much. So
yeah, Brawl kind of ends all that sort of play.
That's
it
true.
Seems like too, but. I will say this for the Warrior deck is that, and to contrast against the Hunter one, I never had a desire to play the Hunter OTK deck because it just looked boring, But I have played some of the Warrior OTK, and it's a lot more fun because I feel like, to me anyway, there's more of an active controlling sort of element to playing the Warrior deck, where you have to be more involved and make better decisions as you lead up to that attempt at an OTK than you did with the Hunter deck. What do you guys think?
Well, I think Trump
so
said
for me,
it
the
very
Warrior
well
deck's okay.
that the Hunter OTK was solitaire, and the Warrior decks, at least there is some play to it. Like you're going to have a game, and your opponent's going to figure out which one you're playing, and will know the various ways to stop it. So it's definitely there. It's a lot healthier than ridiculous Hunter OTK for sure.
All right. So let's move on to another class that has been very popular for a long time, and that is Warlock, of course. I mean, the mid-range Warlock deck was easily one of the best, one of the most popular decks before the big ladder reset, and it's still around, although it's not really that great right now. But the Warlock deck that I've seen two kind of Warlock decks, and obviously I want your input on this too, but the one that seems to be the most popular right now, the one that I'm running, is very hyper aggro, like we talked about a little bit earlier with the Leper Gnomes, Leroy, all that really low-cost stuff to just try to zerg your opponent down as fast as possible. But I've actually been running into a couple of the really kind of old-school, slow, giant-oriented Warlock decks that we saw like way back at the beginning of the beta. I feel like those are coming back a little bit too. So let's talk about Warlock. It seems like the hyper aggro is in a pretty good place overall. I played that largely up to rank 5 on the ladder, and then I've been playing a little bit of Druid and Warlock since then. But Warlock, let's talk about that a little bit, and we'll go to Trump first this time. And you could feel free to mention how you think Warlock is doing in Arena as well, too. I mean, I don't want to exclude the Arena side of things too much, even though this is mostly kind of a constructed discussion, I guess.
Yeah, right on. So Warlock, Warlock's always going to have a place as your like standard deck with low cost stuff because they have such good low cost stuff and their hero ability complements it so much. So I almost think of Warlock as like a mainstay deck, and you're always going to be up against it in some form. It just seems very resilient, and since you are usually on the aggressive side, you're always going to have the life total to do 2 mana draw a card, which is really helpful when you have the late game and you still have early game stuff. It's just nice. That was sort of a tangent to say that Warlock decks are really good, and in Arena, they're also pretty good. And I think they're in an okay spot. They're just like the average deck right now. Like when I think of a deck, I sort of think of, oh yeah, Warlock deck. That's average. It's about what you can expect to face. Yeah.
How often would you say you pick Warlock when you're going into Arena if it's available? Like, or what classes would you pick over Warlock right now?
The way I tend to pick classes is I just let the voters vote for whichever one I go. So,
do they make you play Hunter a lot?
All right.
They do, and I actually think that Hunter is the one class that is significantly below everything else right now. But I have recently started to think about maybe I should be playing it in a more aggressive way. It probably should be, with like a lot of chargers. Maybe I'll try that style out. Maybe it'll help my win percentage out. But yeah, every deck in every class in Arena, and there's the stats from the stats page that you've linked. Those show that Hunter is way below. They show that Priest is way below. I don't agree with that. They might just be playing pretty strong. I think all the classes except Hunter are fairly even in Arena at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was that one Hunter deck that I've been seeing a bit on the ladder, and there's a Reddit post about it a couple days ago, too, the really fast aggro Hunter deck, and it was made to be sort of a counter to the mid-range Warlock that was still popular at the time, and it did work very well against Warlock. That was really about it, I felt. It kind of... I played around with it a little bit, and it seemed like it was a bit weak against a lot of other classes, but what do you guys think? Have you ever ran into that Hunter deck? What do you think?
I've hit that deck a lot of times, and it just matters which class you're playing, what type of deck you're playing. Like,
yeah,
I feel like Druid. I'm actually looking at these stats on this page that Trump linked to me with the global win rates and stuff, and it shows that the biggest win percentage anything has against anything is Druid against Hunter, and I have to agree with that. Like,
yeah,
it feels like almost a free win when you play Druid against it, and so I don't know. It's like a cool idea. I like that it's like all a bunch of charge guys and the hero ability. It's
a fun deck to play.
But yeah, it's like pretty neat, but I don't think it's actually that good of a deck, even though a lot of people are trying it out.
Yeah, I tried it out for like an afternoon basically, and then kind of came to that conclusion. And I'm not too worried when I run into it. Strifecro, do you see any Hunter up in the high reaches of Legendary?
I think I played that deck with my Druid a couple times. It was like you guys said, Druid is the best deck against it, so it was always extremely easy for me. I think Hunter is clearly. I agree with Trump. I think Hunter is clearly the weakest class right now, and it's not even that close. I don't know I think one of the reasons why is the hero power is just way too one-dimensional. Like it pretty much contributes nothing other than doing 2 damage to them. There's like a couple of other hero powers like that. I think the only other hero power like that is Warrior, where all you can do is armor up. But Warrior has
way more interesting though. That's like there's actually like armor mechanics and stuff.
Oh, that's
and,
true.
Like I feel like that's just so much better than this. The Hunter one is literally just like hey, make a rush deck with Hunter. It's like telling you, and then like a lot of the
Put
Hunter cards
beasts
are
in
actually
there.
like cool looking controlling cards. Like it's got so much good
Yeah.
removal and shit, and then you have like 2 damage, really? Like,
Yeah, the hero
so should
power
I be
kind of
playing
fits.
explosive shots and use my hero power all day? Is that how I should be playing this? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and also some of the warrior cards are ridiculously strong. Whereas Hunter, I mean, a lot of their removal spells are good, but I don't think that their cards are strong enough that their hero power can be so weak. I feel so.
Mhm.
Especially with the Unleash the Hounds getting nerfed and even the Buzzard getting nerfed to 2-1, so it's weak now, I think.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, well, I just
Hunter
wanted to bring up
sucks.
the. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up Hunter for a moment because it is a class in the game, and we're trying to kind of I'm trying to kind of cover most, if not all, the classes today, just to kind of do a recap on where things are at. But that's pretty much where Hunter's at, no doubt about it. Let's see. Have we talked about rogues yet? I'm trying to remember.
No, not really.
Okay, we have not talked
yet.
about rogues just yet. Yeah. Now, rogues are the highest win percentage right now in, I believe, constructed end arena. Let me just double check that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Here.
Yeah, I will say,
Yeah, I believe it
according
is.
to
Yeah, they are, okay.
Hearth stats, which is
According to that.
voluntarily collected stats, like that might not actually reflect the actual win rate since it's
Yeah.
just a sample size, but
It's a good sample size, though, a little over 4,000.
I mean, we even
Not
saw
bad.
stats that the coin was not ridiculous. So I mean, stats can mean
That's true.
anything.
Well, the coin.
I
is
actually
not
stand by the
ridiculous.
coin not being ridiculous.
I don't
FYI.
think it is either.
You guys are ridiculous. We're talking about Rogue now, which is why I brought up the coin. But okay, let's. When Rogue
All
has
right.
coin, man, it's about 1,000 times better at early game.
All right, we need a response to this. Strifecro, what do you think?
You mean about Rogue or the coin? Rogue
Either
with
one.
the coin.
Rogue
Well,
with the
both.
coin. Sure,
I
we'll
think
do that.
that Rogue is the class that benefits the most from the coin. Two of their early game drops, you know, the Ringleader and the SI Agent benefit a lot from the coin. Also, they can do some pretty crazy stuff early on with Van Cleef with the coin. Like they can get it out on turn 2 as a 4/4. But the
Yeah.
scarier one is when you have a backstab target and they can get it out as like a 6/6 on turn 2 with the coin. So, I mean, I definitely think the coin benefits Rogue more than any other class simply because of combo, and I guess you can consider the Van Cleef thing a combo too. But for most classes, I don't think that the coin is significantly better than just having an extra mana or, you know, just going first, you know, like as Druid or, you know, I think it's pretty good for Warlock, I guess, because you can drop 2 1-drops, which is pretty scary.
I feel like
My
Warlock,
new-
you're fine either way because you have so many
Yeah.
1-drops. But yeah,
True,
it definitely
but
is nice to
my-
toss 2 down on your first turn.
My new view on the coin, my more recent view. First off, I still think it shouldn't be a spell or a card in hand, but
I still.
it's
I agree
like
with that.
I feel like it's really super good in Warlock, in Rogue, and if you're playing like, let's say Druid versus Druid, give me that fucking coin all day, man. Like, because then you have like the possibility of like 2 innervates and a coin, and just the edge you can get with that if you have the right cards in hand is like you just get this tempo advantage that's ridiculous. So, because the early game, like Druid versus Druid, so often is just armor, like using the hero ability against each other. So, anyways, let's talk about actual Rogue though.
Okay.
is-
Yes, Rogue.
Um,
Rogue's one of the classes that I feel like you've got kind of your solid normal combo deck, and then so that you've got this skeleton of a Rogue deck that relies on a lot of the same cards, but then there's just little modifications that happen over time. I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot of massive changes in Rogue decks since the very early beta. What do you think, Strifecro?
I think that, like, Rogue, I've always thought of Rogue as, like, the definition of kind of like a mid-range deck. You know, even when, you know, Warlocks were playing very aggro, I had some, like, one of my best performing decks ever was, like, a pretty, like, back before the Shattered Sun nerfs was just the very standard Rogue deck that was kind of using 2 Sunwalkers as well as, you know, the 2 Argent Commanders. You know, so it's still, like, a very mid-range type deck. I felt like, you know, that kind of deck was beating like the very aggressive ones, like the board control Warlocks, you know, pretty handily. I think the biggest problem with Rogue back then was just, you know, if you were a slow, like, you know, really solid mid-range deck, you kind of just had no chance against some of the Freeze Mage decks because, I mean, the only game plans
Yeah.
anyone really had versus Freeze Mage was either to out heal them, meaning just outlast them forever, or to rush them down, and you could do neither with Rogue. With that kind of slow mid-range Rogue. Now that the kind of ice block deck is gone, those giants, Rogue has a fairly good place in the mid-range kind of category. The problem is with Mind Control also being nerfed to 10. A lot of other classes can just go even bigger than Rogue, without fear of getting mind controlled. Like back then, it was so strong before the before Freeze Mage got very popular, and when Mind Control was at 8 mana. I think that was the strongest point of Rogue, unless you're talking about way back when Rogue was super imbalanced. But now I think you can just go even a little bit bigger with things like Druid, and be in a better spot than Rogue. So I mean, I think it's pretty. I think the decks that you can make as Rogue are pretty simple as what you want in your deck. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it has such a high win rate. It's like
Rogue does seem to be one of the most straightforward classes that gives the most kind of like bang for your buck as far as like benefit per mana cost. It's really one of the best.
It's like it's so good at gaining tempo advantages. Like the amount of damage that it can do for like a backstab plus an eviscerate is hilarious. 2 mana, 6 damage. It's like, okay, I thought my Druid of the Claw was going to stop some of your minions. I guess I was wrong, but it's like really good. And like one of the more interesting things is watching, based on the metagame, Gnomish Inventor go in and out of the Rogue decks. Because like when it gets slow enough, Gnomish Inventor comes back and then he goes away again, and I feel like that's like it's almost like how I take the temperature of how fast decks are currently is like how many Gnomish Inventors I see. But like these Rogue decks, like a lot of them that I see on the ladder right now, are they like basically gain like cards all the time. It's like play all the draw minions, a bunch of their spells cantrip. A bunch of their spells like combo out like the SI7 agent and Harvest Golems or something like that, and like you're just always gaining value. It's kind of like playing against Shaman. Those are the two decks where like no matter what happens, I look up and they still have 7-8 cards in hand. Like no matter what, and I'm like, whoa, this is just crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like the Rogue deck is a whole town of value.
Whoa! While we're talking about Rogue,
what do you think, Trump?
Yeah, I wanted to bring up just how many different ways there were to play Rogue. So yeah, there's that standard. I mean, there's actually a lot of different ways to play Rogue. You have the all-out Rushy deck with, just all-out Rushy.
Cold Blood.
And then there's with Cold Blood, and then there's like the semi-aggro Rushy combo deck where there's Leroy and then Shadow Step and then Leroy and then Cold Blood, and then you kill your opponent from like 24 or something, and that actually is legitimate. And I've seen it gain some popularity in the Asian servers, which are sort of this great unknown right now. But I get peeks in on their server every once in a while by watching their top streamers. And there's just the standard Rogue deck also, which is very efficient and a good basic deck. I think of it very similar to the Warlock deck. It's also very basic and simple, and it's just your mainstay deck to beat.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why Rogue and Warlock are so always going to be popular is because they need very few legendaries or expensive cards. They're generally just using basic minions, really standard cards, Harvest Golems, Shattered Suns, Dark Irons. They don't really need as many, they don't really need to compete in that legendary war. So I think that's one of the reasons why.
That's a big thing too, yeah. Yeah, you get a lot of good play out of the basic cards.
Do you guys agree with these recorded win rates on hearthstats.net? Because specifically in Constructed, it shows that Rogue has overall, let me see, 54.66% win rate, which is the highest by 2% over Warlock.
Well,
which is about tied with Druid.
Keep in mind, these win rates are across all brackets, from Legendary all the way down to, rank 25. And there's certainly a lot more people, not in Legendary than in Legendary. I think that it's just, and again, it goes back to the previous thing I was saying, because, because the best Rogue and Warlock decks don't need as many Legendaries, more people have access to the better decks. So that's one of the reasons why they can have higher win rates to begin with.
I think the other thing too is that Rogue's a class a lot of people start off with too, so there's going to be a lot more Rogues at the higher, like rank 25, all that kind of stuff too. So there's going to be a lot more Rogues out there getting wins with the class that's kind of usually one of the first ones people pick up too. So stats might be a little bit skewed too. Yeah, I agree.
Why would people choose Rogue first?
Because it's conceptually, I think, very simple to play. Because you've got this combo thing. It's like, here's Rogue. You combo with Rogue. Here's spells that are cheap and do damage to things. So I think Rogue is kind of, in my opinion anyway, I think it's the easiest class to pick up and play. And just be like, oh, look at all these cool combo things I'm doing. I think it's very appealing to a new player because they feel like they're doing lots of fancy stuff. And it's also very appealing as well because you can do lots of damage quickly and get a lot of wins early on, I think. Whereas if you think about someone who tries to pick up and play like Control Druid right away or something like that, that's kind of a tougher deck to play. You have to really be making good decisions to beat a lot of the other first decks that people are going to put together. So, yeah, I just think there's probably a lot more Rogues playing up there too, which may inflate the stats a little bit.
Fair enough.
All right. I'm not saying like Rogue's easy mode or anything like that. I'm just saying it's very appealing for new players, and it's simple to pick up the basic mechanical way of how Rogue is supposed to be played. So, Trump is like kind of like I don't know. What do you think?
The reason why I'm sort of like, I don't know, is I think Mage would be the easiest, and actually Mage is the most played, as it turns out. Just because the Rogue, there are just a lot of options you can do because, like Artosis said earlier, Rogues tend to have a lot of cards in their hand if they're played right. If you play it wrong, you just dump all your cards and like they're not that efficient.
You always have like 3 ways to deal with anything. And that's like actually the challenge of Rogue is figuring out which options you need to keep for later and which options to use now. And it's actually, for me, it's one of the most fun to play, for sure.
Yeah,
I always
and
enjoy
then
playing
there's
Rogue.
Quite a bit.
There's a lot of subtlety. I think the Rogue hero ability is one of the most interesting as well because it's like the one hero ability you can keep. You can like do nothing with it on this turn, and then you're like investing in the future. That's not.
It's pretty neat.
You can't do that much with other classes.
I don't know, that Hunter one's pretty neat.
All right, so we have a little bit of time left, and I know there's a topic that Artosis really wants to talk about. It's just one card in particular. He just wants to like rage about the Blood Imp for a little bit.
I
So
got
here
to
you
rage
go.
to you guys before the show, so most of my rage is gone. But why haven't they fucking fixed Blood Imp yet? Like, for real. For real, why haven't they fixed this thing?
It's still pretty insane. I was shocked when I saw the patch changes, and it's like, well, we're gonna make a change to Flame Imp, make him do 1 more damage to you, but Blood Imp, he's okay. We're gonna leave him be.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And now Blood Imp is so good that people play Young Priestess now.
I know,
It's like,
right?
That's how funny.
Yeah.
That's how funny this world is. It's like they're like, well, this is not as good as Blood Imp, really, but it's like kind of similar. It's Young Priestess is the new Knife Juggler, where it's like it comes out and then it dies. Like I see that, I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta kill this thing before everything's like out of range of whatever the hell I'm playing.
You have like
But,
Young Priestess,
I don't
give
know.
health
Blood
to
Imp-
a Blood Imp, and you're like, kill me now.
Blood Imp is frustrating me lately. Blood Imp
I
and
think it's been
Ragnaros
frustrating
is the
people
sickest
for a
combo
long
in the
time,
whole-
man.
Sickest combo.
Yeah. Are you terrified of the Blood Imp Strifecro?
Not really. I run Pyromancer.
Oh, okay. See,
that does help
the
a little
fact
bit. Okay,
that
there we go. Yeah.
I see so many decks with Pyromancer, and he is literally sitting around because of Blood Imp. So that just goes to show that my point is so valid.
He owes his job to Blood Imp. He should be thankful.
Yeah.
Right.
He clears them out. He clears out all the imps.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean,
Trump.
I think Blood Imp is good. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's. I think he's all right. So
I think he needs a change, man. I think like
how
if you play it, I don't know, some way, like don't give him stealth, make him a
I've got a
1/10.
really easy
Don't give him
change that
stealth,
I've caught from the Reddits on Hearthstone. Just
Okay.
make it adjacent minions get +1 health.
Oh, that's
Okay,
a
see,
big
this
nerf.
is a bit more reasonable. I mean, there's a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You can, it's just like if you don't have AOE, you're just sitting there and you're like, all right. I mean, if we're playing the same cards, yours are better now, which I feel like stifles deck creativity a little bit because if you're going to play like a crazy aggro deck, it has to be Warlock. You get to draw cards. Everything costs 1 mana or 0, and Blood Imp.
That's true. I'd like to see the stealth thing go away and maybe give him like a little bit more health or something like that to make him more sustainable. But I don't know. We'll see. I still feel like they do need to make some sort of change with that. And when we had Ben Brode on the show the other day, one of the lead designers at Hearthstone, he was saying it was still a card that they were really looking at. So they're thinking about it at least. You know that much.
Yeah. I'm sure
it's good
eventually
to know.
it'll have it changed.
Sleep will be easier at night. All right. Well, I think we're pretty much.
I had a rough night against Blood Imp last night. That's all. I'm taking it
feel
out.
better, man. Well, I think that's about it for this week. So let's do some shout outs. Let's go to Trump first. Go ahead and shout out your stuff.
Sure. I'd like to shout out. Let me get the site over here. I am in the running for Razor Team of the Year 2013. And it's actually somewhat hilarious because I'm a team. And I'm actually. Yeah.
That's awesome. I will vote for you.
Thank you. And I am, from what I hear, near the top end. I might slide into third. Maybe I'll get first. What a blowout that would be. Team Trump. So that is my shout out.
All right. Awesome. Strifecro, what have you got to say?
Generally haven't had many shout outs, but I'm considering maybe starting to stream soon.
Yay!
Wow.
Oh,
you get a webcam too?
The world is
if I stream, I will be getting a webcam. I kind of right now, if I stream, it's like a private Twitch stream where I just stream to friends. But I've been noticing that people have been kind of following me on Twitch, where they could just watch my stream when I stream in private. But I'm considering kind of streaming to get a webcam and do that stuff. So I guess if you want to watch me, if I do start, you could follow me on Twitter or Twitch. It's I think it's Strifecro. That's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, that's my shout out.
All right. Well done. All right, Artosis, what have you got?
Shout out to Simpatico and Della for helping out with this show. It's pretty awesome. And these two awesome guests too. They're great. And if Strifecro streams, you guys want to watch it. He's like probably the best player I've seen in Constructed. He's like right up there at the very tip top. As you can see from his #1 rank, I guess the rankings mean something. And cheers my sponsors, TT Sports iBuyPower and the Dog A House. All right. Good.
All right. Well, thanks to our guests for being on. Thanks Trump and Strifecro for coming on the show. Oh,
the
yes.
King of the Hill. We had some corrupted files. We're so sorry.
That's right.
We'll get that up as soon as possible. I don't know what my computer. I might have to reformat. I think maybe I have a virus or something. I'm not sure. Sorry.
It's ready. We just need to fix it and get it out there. So it'll be soon, hopefully. But yeah. Well, thanks to our guests for coming on. Strifecro and Trump. Always great to hear the input. And thanks to Artosis for being the great co-host as well, and Simon Simpatico for putting the show together, kind of showing all the cards we're talking about at the same time. Really cool stuff. I guess for me, I mean, follow my Twitter and all that stuff, but then also watch League of Legends Champions tonight. Quarterfinal match, CJ Blaze versus KT Bullets. It's going to be really good. Classic Kespa Korea match. So yeah, watch that stuff as well. Other than that, I guess that's about it. So keep playing Hearthstone, and we'll see you next week with more content. And watch Twitters for when we're going to get that King of the Hill out. We'll let you guys know as soon as possible. So
I can't wait to see what happens during that King of the Hill.
Me too.
I don't know what happens. People are so tight-lipped about it.
As they should be.